On 5 Live now, drunk again, Ann Widdecombe investigates. The former Tory MP looks at binge drinking in the UK. Ann Widdecombe says anyone found incapable on the street should end up in court. She'll be here to take your calls from 11 o'clock. So listen to the programme, see what you think, and then call Ann Widdecombe on 0500 909 693 or text us on 85058. This is Drunk Again, Ann Widdecombe investigates.
Won't you join me for a drink?
I'm Rebecca.
I'm Kate.
I'm Brooke.
I'm Phoebe.
And I'm Anne.
There's some establishment that's called a reggae music and soul food bar. Shall we go there?
When you're standing on your 2 feet, the levels of adrenaline in your bloodstream double.
Somebody like me enjoys their nightcap in bed with a good book.
Last time we went out, we had a blow-up bed.
And and everyone has to spoon as well.
Yeah.
How many inches is that? How many inches is that? To temperance and sobriety. Cheers.
Cheers.
Won't you join me for a drink?
It's early on a Friday morning. The streets are quiet, but drink will soon be back on Britain's mind. The Prime Minister has pledged to attack binge drinking from every angle. A new financial levy on late-night bars and clubs is proposed. In about 12 hours, hundreds of thousands of young professional women throughout the UK will be getting, as they would put it, hammered and going wild this weekend, before resuming a perfectly sensible, respectable life on Monday morning. I'm not going to judge them from afar. I'm actually going to accompany them on their big night out and hopefully find some real human beings behind the screaming headlines on binge drinking.
I just love it. Going out and getting drunk and just letting my hair down, dancing. That's like the best thing ever. Taking pictures of myself.
You have the little catch up the next morning and everyone reminds you of what you've done.
Yeah. And that's what I love. You pick up your phone and you look through your pictures and you think, oh, look at this picture, look at that. And then it just gets, like, as you scroll through the pictures, it gets worse and worse. Eyelashes off, hair down, makeup smudged over the face. But I love that.
The family tradition was that at Sunday lunch the rest of us would drink water, because in those days people couldn't afford to drink wine with meals. We used to drink water, but my father would always drink a beer, and he would have it in this old pewter tankard. And when the washing up was done, if my grandmother had been doing the washing up, this tankard always used to sit in state on the draining board, because she would not wash it up. Everything else in the kitchen was completely clean, all the surfaces were clear, but this tankard sat upon the draining board untouched and unwashed, because my grandmother was afraid that if she tried to wash it up, some of the contents might touch her, and she had sworn never to taste, touch nor handle.
I want to spin her around like that man done on Dancing on Ice.
That's how we get
That's
when we're
my
out.
goal
We have
for
a
the
nice,
night.
we do, don't we? We always have cuddles and kisses. And obviously she might not like that.
Oh, I think
She might not like being touched. Glam herself
She
up.
should be excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glam herself up for a good night out. Just think to
Yeah.
herself, I'm only probably going to do this once. Why
Can
not?
have a dance.
She doesn't know any of us.
No.
So she, just go for it.
Of course, one of the casualties of the binge drinking debate is clear and accurate statistics.
I'm Nigel Hawkes. I'm director of an organisation called Straight Statistics, which is an attempt to identify misuse and mishandling of statistics by the media, by ministers, by government departments, by industry, advertisers and so on. Survey statistics, which are the best source of data we've got, show that the levels of drinking among young people are actually declining, have been declining now for 4 or 5 years. If we look at men aged 16 to 24, drinking more than 50 units a week, that's serious level of drinking. In 2000, 14% of men were drinking that much, or said they were when surveyed. By 2008, that had gone down to 7%. In other words, it had halved. And the same is true among women. And if we look at women aged 16 to 24, 9% were drinking over 35 units a week in 2000, and that had fallen to 6% in 2008. So the evidence is that actually the proportion of people in that age group who are drinking excessively has been falling for most of the last decade. Why do we feel this is a problem when I'm saying that the statistics don't really confirm it? I think this is because it tends to be more public. There's a lot of public inebriation, people turning out of bars at midnight and rolling down the road and straight into A&E. And people see that and they're offended by it, understandably. That didn't used to happen to anything like the same degree. So I think it's more the visibility than the actuality that's the problem here.
As part of this Five Live investigation, I went to see Professor Moira Plant in Bristol. She has studied women and alcohol from Africa to Alaska and advises the World Health Organization.
So tell me, Anne, why are you particularly interested in young women and alcohol?
I think the answer is pure bafflement. I don't come to this from any position of being anti-drink. I'm not remotely anti-drink. I can understand that somebody might go out and get drunk. Yes. What I can't understand is somebody going out to get drunk, and not just once in a while, but week after week after week.
Well, as my daughter would say, the fact that women have more freedom now than they used to does not mean they have to behave more sensibly than young men. The way that young women used to behave in the 60s and 70s was if somebody got drunk, they didn't boast about it. They were, if anything, slightly ashamed about it. And so hangovers were the kind of things that made you say, oh, I will never do this again. Now what's happening is young women have their own war stories in the same way as young men have always had. Young women are often proud of getting drunk. They're often proud of a hangover because it suggests they had a really good night out. So it's the way that things are being reinterpreted that is part of the issue. If you behave in a way that you're ashamed of, you tend to stop behaving in that way. If there's nothing in your behaviour that you see to be ashamed of, there's no reason for you to change your behaviour.
Phil Hadfield is the author of Bar Wars, a study of Britain's nighttime leisure economy. He also appears in court for licensing hearings and advises towns and cities on their alcohol policy.
It's been very difficult, I think, for governments to grasp the nettle of being punitive about drinking, because the British attitude to drinking has been quite laissez-faire, and restrictions on drinking, even the pricing of drinking, I think have been restricted for political reasons, despite the evidence being that if you reduce the availability, you reduce the amount of drunkenness.
Phil, you say that public opinion might be resistant to a crackdown on drinking. Don't you think the public would actually welcome a crackdown which might just reclaim the city centre for ordinary families on a Friday night?
I think the powers for the police are already there, and they're somewhat constrained by the guidance from the Home Office. So, for example, the fixed penalty notice was brought in by the Labour government, and at the time it was put forward as this is on-the-spot fines for drunkenness, so you will be required to pay £80, very much like a parking ticket, and that will be given to you on the street. Now, that's not really used like that, because the guidance to it required that the person receiving that ticket had to understand what they were given. So, and of course they were drunk. So it really goes down to the legal process and requirement of due process by the courts. Did this person understand the situation when they were read their rights, when they were arrested, what was actually happening to them? So there's various legal obstacles to taking a hardline approach and to criminalising people for their drinking, in that when they're not actually committing an offence which harms someone else in a more direct way. The small print of the legislation has tied the enforcement and taken it away from the headline messages that politicians have put forward to the public.
Is binge drinking a culture which is learned?
A lot of the social scientific evidence suggests that that is the case. It's partly about we learn how to behave when drunk. We don't necessarily have to behave in a particular way. Anthropological studies show that different people in different countries will actually behave in different ways given the same quantity of alcohol in their systems. In a society where it's shameful to be drunk in public, people are still able to restrain their behaviour, and it doesn't necessarily come out in the way that it does in the UK.
So, Dr. Phil Hadfield, you are king for a day. How are you going to start getting on top of this one?
The first thing I'd do is to change the pricing of alcohol so that there was virtually no difference between the price of alcohol in a supermarket and in a bar. If it was seen as a luxury product, I mean, it's very much around the same similar debates around obesity. If high-calorie food was the most expensive food, we'd all be a lot slimmer.
I'm bound to ask you this. Look, the overwhelming majority of the population enjoys a drink, but doesn't go out deliberately to get drunk and incapable. A family sits down and shares a bottle of wine. Somebody like me enjoys their nightcap in bed with a good book. People go out to the bar after work, have a couple of drinks and then go home. Why is it that all of us have to pay more in order to cope with the people who are drunk, disorderly and incapable?
Well, I think that's the nature of all licensing and regulation. If there's a risky product, then it needs to be taxed accordingly. I think that's a sensible view, and countries that do that have less problems with alcohol. That's one of the few proven facts in this area.
I'm one of millions who can enjoy sitting round a pub table with a drink and some friends. But I'm utterly mystified by the phenomenon of the vertical drinking bar, where hundreds of people stand up for the whole evening in a large but hopelessly overcrowded space. To explain why these places are so popular in Britain, I asked a New Yorker.
My name is Dr. Harry Woodshall. I'm discipline leader in physiology at Brighton and Sussex Medical School and author of You Are What You Hear. One of the most powerful things that bars do is to actually have them standing. The very fact that your body is upright, when you're standing on your 2 feet, the levels of adrenaline in your bloodstream double almost instantly on the basis of nothing more than just standing. So people are already in a very strong physiological and chemical state to get faster. The other thing that the bars do is by having people interact with so many others, you get the crowd effect. Crowds alone make people want to have more fun, they feel really electric and they want to talk more. And of course they want to bump into other people. All of these social rounds mean that you actually have more literal rounds, of course. You buy more as well. So people talk to one another, they move around quickly and they go to the bar and consume faster.
The thing that really irritates me most about statistics on drinking and health are the figures for alcohol-related admissions to hospital. Now, we've been told repeatedly over the last couple of years that more than 1 million people are admitted to hospital every year as a result of alcohol-related conditions. And the way this is calculated is completely nonsensical. It's not calculated on what you actually go into hospital for, but on the basis of many other things you might be suffering from. Let's say you're admitted because you've got lung cancer, which is not an alcohol-related disease, but you also happen to have high blood pressure. That is an alcohol-related condition, so you'd be counted as a third of an alcohol-related admission, even though the primary reason for your admission has got nothing to do with alcohol. So this has enormously inflated the figures, and the present government have just announced they're going to change the rules, and to my great pleasure, they're not going to include these secondary diagnoses anymore. In future, it'll only be the primary diagnosis. So that will reduce the numbers from over 1 million a year to around about less than 200,000. And that was the figure that David Cameron quoted in his recent speech on the subject. So at a stroke, by changing the methodology, you've cut the numbers by a factor of 5.
We'll meet up at someone's house and maybe have a few, and if we're getting a cab somewhere, we'll always take a bottle of drink.
We'll smuggle in the taxi.
Yeah, we'll smuggle drinks in the cab without the driver knowing. Yeah, that's always helpful.
I start off on Coronas, maybe a WKD, but then I go on to one because I know I have one bottle of one and then that's it. I'm out the game.
I'd normally drink vodka and then, I'll have a few of them and then it'll go to the shots.
Yeah,
Jaeger
shots,
bombs and shots, like sambucas and stuff. That's when you get a little bit tipsy and you think, I can handle a shot right now, and you'll do a shot and then you go for another one. Yeah.
Well, among the people that I feel most sorry for in all this business are the taxi drivers. They've got to pick up the drunks, deliver them home, clean up the sick. I'm now going to speak to Tony Ellis, who's been a London cabbie for 30 years. Does it get a bit fraught?
Yeah, I mean, there is times when it gets a little bit aerated, especially if people are having drinks. I can actually give you one that happened to me one day. A young lady howled me and her friend, can you take her home? I was a little bit hesitated at the time. Well, I took the hiring on, and I got the young lady in the cab. Next minute, I'm going along the road, and next minute she's on the floor. So she was completely had too much to drink, right? And you start thinking to yourself, how are you going to handle this at the end of the night? Because you're on your own with that young lady, you don't know actually how to handle that. And the best thing I'd done, I actually took her to the police station because I couldn't handle it. I didn't want to get in the back of the taxi and start handling that lady. That's what you've got to be careful. You're very vulnerable at that time when someone's had a drink. Anything could be said while you're out there.
Well, my name's Martin. I'm a taxi driver in Exeter, in Devon, and I drive the Saturday nights. Well, at the early part of the evening, I'm usually taking people into restaurants and then taking them home again at 9:30, 10:30, that kind of time. They've had a nice evening, very pleasant and everything, and then about 11:30 is what I call the idiot button gets hit, and you end up taking people into town from their homes at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and they've been sat at home whacking down the cheap supermarket booze, because the price of beers and drinks and everything in the nightclubs and bars is so expensive, so that they can't afford to drink there all night. So they get drunk at home on the cheap booze, and then we're ferrying them in, often more drunk then than when we pick them up at 3:30 in the morning after the clubs.
We have lost control of some behaviours in our city centres on a Saturday night. And I think I'm not alone in feeling that if someone said to me, let's go out for a meal, we can go out to somewhere outside Bristol, or we could go into the city centre in Bristol on a Friday night, very few people my age would say, let's go into the city centre so that we can be pushed or shoved or vomited on as somebody comes out of a pub.
When I sit out on a French boulevard or in an Italian square, I very consistently observe parents out, not just with children, but with grown-up youngsters, with older teenagers. Over here, it's a bit naff to go out with your parents once you reach 14. Why, and is that making a difference?
Yes, I think it is making a difference. The European School Project on Alcohol and Drugs, which has been carried out over a number of years now, compared UK children, 15 and 16-year-old school children, with 15 and 16-year-old school children in France. And the major difference between them was, in France, the parents knew where their children were on a Saturday night. So the way that families live together, the way that families use alcohol, in many ways alcohol is integrated in some societies and not in others. And actually, it may be surprising for people to hear that alcohol is not integrated into our society. Alcohol is something that people do on a Friday and Saturday night, usually outside the home. They go out and they go out to get drunk. In France, for many years, alcohol was very much integrated into society. Alcohol was seen as a food. Wine is seen as a food in France, Spain, Italy, wine-producing countries. And so people drank as part of a meal. They wouldn't think of going out and getting drunk. For young people in these countries now, it's becoming much more common for them to go out and get drunk. So although the per capita consumption, these measures that we epidemiologists use, that consumption is reducing in many European countries, the way people are drinking, young people in particular are drinking, is different. So instead of spreading out 3 bottles of wine over the week, they will drink 3 bottles of wine on a Friday night.
My name is Chantal Kou. I'm a door supervisor. I'm a bouncer.
You're a lady bouncer?
A lady bouncer.
And you largely deal with the ladies?
Yes, my job is deal with women.
So how do you deal with a drunken, obstreperous woman?
It's very difficult. I have to put my head down, tell them, quietly. If they don't want to understand, I have to use my force. I have to use force.
People say binge drinking is such a problem. Actually, it's not necessarily binge drinking, it's just drinking. It's just the amount people drink here on a Friday and Saturday night. A binge for a woman is 6 units of alcohol. Now, that is 2 large glasses of wine. If you have 2 large glasses of wine on a Friday night in this country, a woman would be defined as having a binge. Now, that's not a helpful way of looking at things. And so when people say, what can we do about this scourge of binge drinking? Actually, the question really needs to be, what should we do about the amount people are drinking in this country? There's nothing magical about this word binge. It's just become a fashionable term to use. What we really need to ask is, how do we improve the way that people drink in this country for their own health benefit and for the benefit of our society at large?
How would you start to address this problem?
Price seems to be one of the best ways of control. I would certainly be looking very carefully at the number of drinking establishments there are in the centre of cities. I would also be looking at how long pubs and clubs are open for. And I would be looking at ways of encouraging middle-aged and older people to, in some senses, to reclaim their city centres.
So here I am in the bar, and I'm now having to pretty well fight my way to my seat. Now this would be my dear of hell, because what is the point of coming out if you can't hear yourself think? I'm sitting here waiting for the girls to turn up, but I'm joined by another one at the moment, and I'm going to ask her, I'm going to ask you in fact, what's your idea of a big Friday night out?
With my close girlfriends, I live with my best friend, so we'll probably have a few drinks in the house. And then we don't tend to go to that many pubs, to be honest. Like tonight is because we finished work and we all went out together, but then we'd generally go clubbing a lot later on. So we'd have quite a few drinks in the house, usually.
Do you ever get drunk?
Do I ever get drunk? Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
No, really drunk or just a bit tipsy?
I mean, I think I probably did when I was a lot younger, get really, really drunk. But not now. Like, I mean, I get drunk. Like, I get drunk and I get giddy and like, I can't walk straight and whatever, but I don't get, like, horrendously drunk. I don't know if that sounds like horrendously drunk.
Well, why do you like getting drunk?
It's just a bit of a release. Just to have a few drinks and just have fun. Yeah.
But the more drunk you get, the less you can appreciate what you're doing. You can't appreciate.
Not necessarily. I mean, that would be if I was ridiculously drunk and I couldn't see straight and I was being sick. But if I just have a few drinks and I'm just a bit giddy and I'm having fun with friends, then I probably am a bit out of what I would do normally, and I talk a lot more and I have a little bit more fun because I don't mind. It's probably people's perception. I don't mind what people think when I've had a few more drinks.
I know what I'd be doing on a Friday night. I'd be going out with friends for a curry. And certainly we would share a couple of bottles of wine between a group of us. But we would be there to enjoy the food. We'd want to savour the food. We would want conversation. We would want to dispute. We would want to laugh. We would want to gossip. We'd want to amuse each other. Not be out of it, for heaven's sake. And I don't understand why these girls don't do that, or why they might not have a couple of drinks. Nothing wrong with that at all. Couple of drinks, go to the cinema, enjoy a good film, come out, discuss the film over a couple more drinks if necessary, but then go home, dear. Go safely home. It's getting very noisy in here. I don't think we're going to have much pleasant conversation. Now, there's some establishment that's called a reggae music and soul food bar, but I'm told it's quiet. Shall we go there?
Sounds good. Yeah, why not?
In some party, I have to wear my star vest because it's very, very, very dangerous.
You have to wear a star vest?
The star vest. I have to be very, very, very careful. I'm start this job not in London because I'm a French girl. I start this job in Paris, but here is more difficult because English people drink a lot.
Much more than they do
much
in Paris?
More than Paris, yeah. They start earlier.
And do you think it's to do with the family culture over here?
Sometimes, sometimes, I don't know, I'm not going to know everything, but to me, this country, that they're too much, how do you say that in English? They're too much easier with young boy or young girls. You understand what I mean?
Not enough supervision.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, to me it's that.
So
I don't know.
parents have a big role to play.
Thank you. Big role to you know, to educate their children, and you know.
We're going to head off now.
You want me to come with you to protect you?
Oh, don't worry. Coming up in the next half hour on 5 Live.
Have you ever done a Zambuca? A Zambuca. They set it alight.
They went out like that.
Are you in your pyjamas?
They went out like that.
Yeah, I'm in my pyjamas.
You went out in your pyjamas?
Or you can light it in your mouth. No! Anne, you haven't lived!
Oh, I think I have.
You're going home with a hangover tonight.
You're listening to Drunk Again. Ann Widdecombe Investigates on 5 Live.
Won't you join me for a drink?
See ya.
You great.
Yeah, hello. Oh, this is Rebecca.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Phoebe.
Hi, hello.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Hello, who are you?
Phoebe.
Phoebe, hello Phoebe.
Hello. Brooke.
Sorry?
Brooke.
Right, okay.
Brett.
So, okay, well, let's start the evening going. What would you like to drink?
Can I get a vodka lime and soda, please?
A vodka lime and soda, and what will you have?
Can I get a vodka lime lemonade?
A fizzy water, please. That's right, it's Lent. It's Lent. What is it about vodka?
It's clear. I don't know. I like the taste of it.
Okay, right, we'll fix those drinks. If you said to me you mustn't waste an evening,
Yeah.
I'd really want to be, if you like, present throughout the evening. I wouldn't want to be out of it. For example, I'd like to go out and have curry with friends, and we'd share a couple of bottles between a group of us, and we'd be having conversation. But I'd want to be enjoying that. I wouldn't want to be getting progressively more and more out of it. And then wake up...
I think we get to a state where we're out of it.
I think
yeah.
all of that.
Yeah. I
Because we've
wouldn't
learned
drink
to cope.
I wouldn't drink to an extent where I'm going to feel sick or anything like that. If I felt that I've had enough, I know that I've had enough. I'd like to be in control.
But can you honestly, I mean really honestly, demolish half a bottle of wine, 5 vodkas and 3 shots and not feel slightly woozy?
Remember, this is starting at like maybe 6 and then we come back at 3, 4. So it's over a long period of time.
And we dance it off.
And with the vodkas, you're having Coke and lemonade. So it's kind of, it's not straight vodka. So it's watering it down a bit. So it's maybe sounds worse than it is.
Well, I'm just trying to add that up. I mean, your half bottle of wine is about 4 units, depending on what the strength of the wine is. You're then taking 5, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, single vodkas. So that's 9 units. Then you've had 3 shots. We're now up to 12 units. And the daily recommended amount is 3 units for a girl.
I save them up in the week.
Yeah. That's like the point,
don't
isn't
drink
it?
at all in the week.
I can't drink in the week. If I have a drink in the week, it's my next day, at work, I can't do it. I can't teach with a hangover or with a little headache.
But isn't your weekend so precious to you that you don't want to feel ill when you wake up in the morning?
That's why we don't go out as often anymore.
No.
On a Sunday, unfortunately, we have to do work for school the following week. So I can't be hungover and be doing schoolwork if I want to plan any half-decent lessons anyway.
And also, but going out though, it's not like all we do is just drinking. We are, chatting with our friends as well, and that's having a good time with our friends. And to me, that's what one of the most important things is as well, just having a good time with your friends, having a drink, having a dance, and being happy.
So you're never incapable?
I think because we're all good friends now, when we go out, we all know when each other's getting to that stage, and we know when we all need to go home, and so we never get to that stage.
I'm going to talk to Brian Hayes from the London Ambulance Service. Brian is the paramedic who came up with the idea of the so-called booze bus, or the alternative response vehicle, to give it its official title. This ambulance is specially equipped and it tours the streets during the night, treating those found ill or injured through excessive alcohol consumption. So, it's Friday. Where will you be tonight?
From about 8 o'clock tonight, we'll open up the walking centre in Soho, where we'll deal with all the intoxicated patients come in. The booze bus will be trolling the West End. The whole of central London will be.
When will you start?
We'll start at 7 o'clock, well set up, and then we're ready to rock and roll by about 9 o'clock.
And you'll be finished when?
7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Well,
7 o'clock tomorrow morning?
7
You're
o'clock
on
tomorrow
from
morning.
7 in the evening till 7 in the morning?
Yep, 12-hour shift.
Dealing
and we'll
with
do
drunks.
this tonight and tomorrow night. We'll be back to station to finish by 7 o'clock once we've cleaned up everything that our lovely patients have left us.
Ugh. Tell me what the worst case is you've ever had to deal with.
The two that spring to mind straight away was a young guy about 5 years ago decided to jump up onto a ledge on one of the banks in the city without realising that actually the drop the other side went into the basement. He died with massive head injuries. And a young guy who was messing about on the Lions in Trafalgar Square with his friends who fell off of one of them and ended up being paralysed from the waist down. So we're not just going to people that are actually sort of just drunk. There's some really serious injuries happen through alcohol. We got a call to one of the streets in the West End of London, and the call specifically came down that this person had been drinking, had been seen to fall over. We got the call. We turned up, the person had been drinking, but what actually happened was he'd been bashed to the floor. He then had his head stamped on and the whole of his mandible had moved. So the whole of his jaw had smashed, and now these teeth here were now facing sort of that way. So it then became making sure that you're switched on, that you can't just treat it as a drunk call. So that's just one example. A lot of the youngsters now won't even get into the pubs. We'll pick them up in this bus before they've even got to a pub or a club, because they've got so wasted getting ready that by the time they get out, it's 11, 12 o'clock at night. And then you'll get the calorie drinkers, the ones that during the day will stop what they're eating because they're on a calorie controlled diet, and then what they'll do is they'll count up what they expect to drink during the night, and they'll take those calories away from what they eat during the day. So it makes them more susceptible to getting drunk on a completely empty stomach,
and it's going straight into the liver.
Straight there. That's a growing problem that we're finding is people that are sort of missing out on their calories during the day and then making up for it with alcoholic drinks at night. What we find with young blokes particularly is they'll stick together. If a young bloke gets drunk, 9 times out of 10 his mates will try and hook him over the shoulders and they'll try and get him home. With young girls, they don't, and we're finding increasingly more and more we're going to these young, and they're on their own.
What are they doing to themselves long term?
Alcohol will cause problems with every single part of the body. The eyes, it ages the skin quicker. Liver cirrhosis everybody knows about, and the damage that it does to that. It can make you more susceptible to heart problems, a condition known as holiday heart, which is atrial fibrillation, where the heart just flutters along. And a lot of youngsters get that when they're abroad and they go to places like Benidorm and things like that and come back and suffer from that. There isn't a part of the body that it doesn't affect. Instead of turning around and saying, oh, somebody was drunk, well, no, you've overdosed on alcohol. Yeah. It's a drug.
So, Brian, the booze bus, as it's called, was your own dream child. Magnificent work, but how long can you go on doing this for?
The times that I do it are getting fewer now that I've sort of moved on in my role as just a paramedic. But we've got a really, really sort of good group of guys that sort of go out and do this every Friday and Saturday night. And we'll be there, and this vehicle will keep running until the need's not there. For something that's so successful, I actually can't wait for the day when we can turn around and say, you know what, we don't actually need this vehicle anymore. We need to get into primary schools, and we need to start teaching kids at a very young age that it is a drug. It's not some fun time thing that you can just drink, get drunk, and to hell with the consequences. People have got to be held responsible for their drinking and the state that they get into.
To temperance and sobriety. Cheers.
Cheers. Would you like a shot, Anne? Have a shot.
No, I don't think I
offered. We offered someone earlier.
Even if it weren't length,
Have you ever done a Zambuca? A Zambuca?
Well, clearly no officer have a clue what you're talking about.
They set it alight. Or you can light it in your mouth. No! Anne, you haven't lived!
You're going home with a hangover tonight.
I just don't understand how you have so much and apparently enjoy it, and then feel ill and apparently think that it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter. You might die tomorrow. At least you can say you had a great time the night before.
It's worth it if you've had a good night before. It's not worth it if you've had a rubbish night before.
Yeah.
What is a good night?
Like you've seen all your friends, you've had a giggle, you've danced loads.
Without drinking a lot.
Yeah,
can't
but
you?
some people don't tell their funny stories till they've had a few drinks.
But can you even remember the funny stories the next day?
Well, somebody remembers bits, and then you all put, that's the best bit, the next day.
Photos.
We're looking at the photos, and somebody saying, did this happen? What about this bit? And then, like, pulling it all together, that is really fun. Especially when you've got lots of girls and you've all stayed at the same house the next day, and you all wake up and you're all top to tail in the bed, and then it's really fun.
You all wake up top to tail in the bed, and it's really fun. Now, at this point, you are pulling my leg, my dear.
No, it's fine. We always like. It sounds a bit weird, but we always like share beds. Like you know.
I used to have a water bed when I was when I lived at home with my parents. That was always fun when the girls stayed over, because we try and fit about 3 or 4 of us in a water bed, and every time one person moved, somebody would fall off the other edge of the bed.
Last time we went out, we had a blow-up bed.
And in disgust. And everyone has to spoon as well.
Yeah.
Kate then stood on the blow-up bed with her heels, and it went
We
pop.
hadn't even got out.
Yeah, that was before we'd gone out. She stood on the
This
with her
was
heels.
before you'd gone
Yeah.
out. One of those lethal 6 inches that
Oh no,
Brooke
I'm
wears.
too tall to wear heels that high. I'd tower even taller. But I think I was wearing these ones, popped the airbed though. So then I had to share the bed with everybody.
Now, tell me, I know I'm very old-fashioned, but if you know you might get a bit staggery, why don't you wear sensible shoes?
You dance better with heels.
Yeah, and
Your legs
it
look
makes
better.
Or you
Yeah.
just take them off. Once the night's over, you just take them off, and then you go home with like black soles of your feet.
You can wash them, so it's
Yeah.
better.
When I get in, I always have a shower because I have a better sleep. If I have a shower. No, I do. I go home. I'll go home tonight and I'll have a shower. Then I'll go to bed because I have a wonderful sleep. If I don't, I have a really
I
crap
used to,
sleep.
before they brought in the smoking ban, I'd have to go home and have a shower, because
Yeah.
otherwise you'd wake up, that's the worst feeling, a hangover with your hair, you wake up with the hair across your face and all you can smell is smoke. It's disgusting. So the smoking ban has been really good for helping the hangovers.
So, is it fair to say that you go out hoping to get drunk?
That's the aim. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
That's the aim, you
That
say?
is
Yeah.
the aim.
Why is that the aim?
Because, I don't know, if you're with the girls, you want to have a laugh and you want to have a little boogie.
So, how much would you drink in that sort of evening?
It depends. It depends what kind of night we want. A lot, probably.
But what would you call a lot? Might be different from what
If we like get one,
Yeah,
maybe
we'll
we'd get
share
a
a
bottle
bottle of
between us, and we'd probably go through maybe 2, and then we'll get another one. But that usually ends up like on the floor or spilt over someone's
Then it'll
body.
be shots.
Yeah, then we'll go for shots. Yeah.
You'll go for shots after your wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at the same time.
And what will you have had before you actually come out? You know, when you say you get free drinks, what will that be?
I like Coronas or just anything.
Really?
Yeah, just anything really. Like maybe like vodka in like a Volvic bottle with a bit of lemonade.
And how often do you do this?
Like once a month, maybe a little bit more. Probably about 2 weekends out of the month. And then the other 2 are spent like just chilling out, doing things.
Now, when you drink all of that and you get home and you go to bed, how do you feel when you wake up the next day? What time do you wake up the next day?
I don't wake up.
Brooke doesn't wake up.
I don't wake up.
Brooke stays in bed all day. If she surfaces, you might kind of see her run to the bathroom because she doesn't want anybody to see her without her makeup on. And
Or
then she runs
it's 'cause
back
I'm
into
being
the
sick.
bedroom. Yeah.
So you really wouldn't get up all day?
No, I'll just sleep all day.
I get up, but I'm usually really, really, really thirsty, and I can't function.
So when you say you don't get up all day, let's just look at this. You work all week.
Yeah.
You know, and presumably you work hard all week because it's not the easiest job that you've got. So you work all week and then you go out and you've got the weekend. You've got this precious couple of days of freedom. You've actually got it. You've got freedom. You can do what you like. And you spend the day in bed?
No, that'll be
Sunday. If I go out Saturday, it would be a Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday's the day of rest anyway. And then you just wait for your roast dinner, and then that usually sobers you up.
I usually can't eat a roast dinner though, that's the thing.
No. Yeah, like hangover food.
What's hangover food?
Junk food. So you just like longing for like just a really nice
like
meal.
Sausage sandwich.
Yeah, or an egg and plastic cheese.
Philadelphia sandwich.
But do you ever lie there and think to yourself, oh, actually, I wish I hadn't done that?
Oh yeah, I do.
Yeah, when I look at my shoes the next day, probably like chunks missing out my shoes where I've fallen over so much.
You fall over?
Yeah.
Don't you worry that you might be in danger?
No, because 9 times out of 10 I'm with my boyfriend.
And what does he think of it all?
Yeah, he does look after me.
Does he stay sober?
I hope he looks after me. I don't really remember a lot.
The government would call you binge drinkers. Not alcoholics, but binge drinkers. Now, they define a binge, most people would say quite narrowly, they define it as 2 large glasses, so that's about 6 units. That's 2 large glasses of wine. Now, you guys are doing more than a bottle plus shots. You know, you're just to sort of trifle over the binge limit. Does that worry you at all?
I think I am a binge drinker. I don't drink anything in the weekday. We come to weekends and I can't wait for Friday after school to have a drink. I am a binge drinker, but I don't necessarily think that it's bad, and I don't get to that paralytic state which you see all the programmes on. You have the paramedics.
So maybe the government putting the binge drinking, like saying that it's so low, the unit's so low that you're a binge drinker, isn't a good thing, because lots of people say, well, I'm a binge drinker and it's not actually that bad.
So you think in other words it lacks credibility when they pitch it that
It's
way.
not going to change anything, even if they say like, oh, it's binge drinking. People aren't going to think, oh, I'm binge drinking, I'm not going to go out anymore. I just think like when you go out to a bar, 9 times out of 10, everybody is really, really drunk, and that's just it's always been that way. So I don't know why they would try and change it now in the 21st century when it's more accepted than ever.
In my house.
I'll see you tomorrow. It's certainly been a very interesting evening. I thought the girls represented a very, very wide range, not only of views but also of habits. I thought Kate made a very good point when she said that if the government pitches its definition of a binge as low as 2 large glasses of wine, however physiologically accurate that might be, it lacks credibility, because nobody considers themselves binging if they haven't had a drink all week and then they have 2 large glasses of red wine. Well, tomorrow morning I'm going to Basildon, which is where some of these girls come from. I'm going to knock on their bedroom doors. I may take in a restorative cup of tea, but I think there'll be a lecture along the way. Good morning, I'm Anne.
Nice to meet you.
You Carrie's mum?
Yes, I am. I'm Sharon.
So your girl goes out quite frequently on a Friday or Saturday?
Yeah, most weekends she's out and about in London, most of the time in London.
And what sort of state does she come back in?
I'm usually in bed at the time, but very loud and giggly. I heard her this morning about 3:30 it was. But
do you worry about the drinking at all?
I don't worry about her drinking. I worry about sort of, if she's not home. I always sort of worry, but she always texts me. If she's not going to come home, she's staying at a friend, she'll always let me know, but not the drinking, really.
Do you think your mum would have been just as relaxed if you'd gone out every Friday or Saturday and come back at 3:30 in a rather giggly state?
No, I think that has definitely changed.
Do you think your daughter binge drinks?
Well, I suppose if you call drinking every weekend is binge drinking, yeah.
Does she drink in the week?
No.
What? Hello? Now, I thought you'd all got up and had breakfast.
Yeah, we did.
They went out and had breakfast.
Are you in your pyjamas?
They went out like that.
Yeah, I'm in my pyjamas.
You went out in your pyjamas?
Yeah.
You didn't, that's not true.
Well, we honestly did.
So what sort of night did you have last night? You all look bright and breezy.
yes.
How many did you have last night? Kerry, how many did you
I
have?
think about 10 vodkas in total last
10
night.
vodkas?
Yeah.
Were you still standing up at the end of it?
Yeah.
Just about.
Yeah.
And what did you...
like food, it soaks up some of the alcohol, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
What did you have last night?
I was drinking rosé, and then we had a bottle of wine, and then I had a few more wines, and then I went on to vodka. And then a few more wines.
I'd probably say I drank the least.
What did you drink last night?
Rosés, a bit of vodka and some alcopops.
Oh, the alcopops are pretty lethal, you know.
Because they taste so good.
Sydney, you've all been out for breakfast in your pyjamas, but you have the most magnificent eyelashes on. Did you put them on this morning, or have you slept in those?
I've slept in them. A bit of super glue.
I thought I did quite well with actually getting into my pyjamas. Usually I just sleep in my clothes.
There's 3 of us in a bed last night.
3 of you in one bed? Oh, dear.
I stayed in one position all night. I was literally out for the count in one position.
A good sleep, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
And so was it a good night?
I had such a good time,
a
yeah.
really,
All I
really
remember
good
is just
night.
giggling pretty much start to
It's such a
finish.
funny night. Did you enjoy your night out with us?
Well, I was a little bit surprised by some of the things you said. And I'm not sure, actually, I believe you demolished 10 vodkas and were still standing absolutely dead upright. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think you kind of get used to it. You realise how much you can drink and how much you can't. You know where your barriers are before you get to that point.
So now, what are you going to do for the rest of today?
Gym, probably.
I'm going to get up and go shopping, I think.
Yeah, I've got to get Mum some Mother's Day last minute bits, flowers and things.
And then are we out again tonight?
Yeah,
I think we are.
Out again tonight?
Yeah.
Hang on, I thought it was going to be next week.
Oh, no.
No, you're out again tonight.
It's St Patrick's Day.
Well, it is St Patrick's Day. You're not going to get drunk on St Patrick's Day, are you?
Yes.
Oh, right, okay.
But to be fair, if it wasn't St Patrick's Day, we probably would go out.
What's happened to your liver after 10 vodkas?
I don't know.
You don't want to know either, do you?
No.
Is it bad?
I won't describe what it's done to your liver, but if you want to go and consult any textbook, you'll find out. But why? Why do you drink that much? I understand why people have a couple of glasses. I have a couple of glasses, but why do you drink that much?
I think after a long week at work as well, it's really serious and you're working hard. I think at the end of the week, if you have a couple of drinks, you just let loose a little bit. You're less conscious about what you're wearing. And
just remind me again what you do. You teach, don't you?
I'm an accountant.
No, you're the accountant.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think when I'm out, if I went out sober, I'd constantly be thinking, do I look okay? And I'd be very wary about who I'm talking to and what I'm saying, and very kind of prim and proper.
Get more confident, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. But when I've had a couple of drinks, I don't really care what I look like. I don't really, I will talk to anybody. I will meet people, and just let loose a little bit. As Sid said, kind of be a bit more myself.
Yeah. You're not so uptight
Less
about things.
aware about what I'm saying.
And to be fair, although we drink a lot, we are sensible. We always make sure we've got cabs.
We'll never leave one of our friends.
We've always
on
make
our
sure
own.
we've got money left for cab home. We've always with each other. We never leave each other. We're always texting our parents or each other to let each other
parents
know
where we are. Yeah.
And your mums are relaxed about your Friday night.
Yeah.
Are you going to do it again tonight? You're not really going to do it. Your liver won't take it. You're not really going to do it again tonight, are you?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I think as long as I have dinner, as long as I eat well throughout the day, then I'm fine. And as long as I eat before I come home, and the next morning, I love food.
Thank you for coming out.
No, it's been great
It's
fun,
lovely.
and it's been an
Lovely.
education. I didn't know people went out to breakfast in their pyjamas. So it really has been an education for me.
If you want to come out again, you've got our numbers.
We take you out in Basildon.
Yeah. To Chicago.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought Kate, Rebecca, Kerry, Phoebe, Brooke, and the rest of the girls. Oh yes, they were jolly and they were enjoying themselves. And yes, they're perfectly sensible, professional people who hold down a job and contribute to society and all the rest of it. But I was as baffled at the end as I was at the beginning about why they choose to get drunk, to let the night before dissolve in half memories. So what do we do? Well, Moira Plant pointed out, I thought very significantly, that it is actually already against the law to be drunk and incapable in a public place. And the one thing that stands out is, however willing those girls were to talk about their experiences, to pretend that they didn't matter, to treat getting drunk as if it was perfectly normal and nothing to worry about. They didn't want us to use their full names. Now, why? I actually think they are afraid of shame, even though they say they're not. I believe that if the police were to draft in some reinforcements every so often, I know it's not something they could do every single weekend, but every so often, without warning, to hold a massive blitz on a city centre, to arrest the people who were drunk and incapable in A&E, to arrest the people who were drunk and incapable on the streets, to arrest the people who were staggering around unable to get home, and to bring them into court with names and photographs, I believe that would be a massive deterrent.
Drunk Again, Ann Widdecombe Investigates was produced by Peter Curran and was a Tonic production for BBC 5 Live.
Widdecombe, you can speak to Ann Widdecombe after the news. Call her right now with your views on her documentary 0500 909.